Once upon a time, there was a gaming company. A company that prides itself in providing the best gaming experiences. Things you just can't find anywhere else in the industry. It was revolution after revolution. From the shoulder buttons and analog sticks now present in virtually every game controller, to their insistence on the bold, brave, and sometimes foolish desire to innovate at all costs. That company was Nintendo. A company so dedicated to their core message that once presented with controversy regarding the pricing of their newly announced console, publicly apologized, went back on their initial pricing choices, and went as far as having their CEO take a massive cut to his own salary. Where else in the AAA industry could you have ever seen something like this? And yes, they've had their bad moments, not just with lackluster consoles, but with dated and weird choices regarding online content creation and emulation. Regardless, in a world where it seemed as if every major player was out to get your wallet and very little else, there was Nintendo, a console manufacturer, a game producer and distributor, a company ran not by those suits who were there to profit off of the hard work and talent of their artists, but instead, a company ran by gamers for gamers. So, why does it look like then that at the flip of a switch, their once admirable attitude came crashing down?
The graveyard of any industry is filled with the headstones of companies who decided to keep doing things the same old way, playing only on the margin, making things just a little bit better.
Can you talk a little bit about why we're seeing such a big price increase versus the previous generation?
The hardware unit itself, which has a lot of improved features. Also to the LCD screen that is much larger and much deeper and richer. And then there's the CPU and GPU processing power that allows for much deeper...
Truth is, this was a long time coming. And if you're a Nintendo fan or someone who's been keeping up with the news for the latter half of the Switch generation, you might have considered the possibility that all this might have happened. I'm talking about the death of old Nintendo, the end of Nintendo's innovation age, the final nail in the coffin of the Iwata era. Iwata was Nintendo's CEO from 2002 all the way up to his untimely and unfortunate passing in 2015. Iwata played a pivotal role in the development of the Nintendo DS, the Wii, the 3DS, and the Wii U, and was even responsible for the massively successful Nintendo Direct style of presentation, making Nintendo the first gaming company to go digital with their broadcasts, announcing brand new titles. Something that, for the time, was seen as absurd, but is now the standard of the industry. He was truly, in many regards, a man ahead of his time. And he would spend his last years at the company as the lead developer of what would become Nintendo's most successful console ever, although he wouldn't be around to see its release. Everything we think we know about modern-day Nintendo, their family-friendly image, their desire to innovate and broaden the appeal of gaming, their blue ocean approach to the industry, even the way they present themselves to us through Nintendo Direct, it all carries the DNA of Satoru Iwata. The Nintendo Switch 2 is the first console since the GameCube to not have Satoru Iwata overseeing or leading its production. And the way Nintendo has handled this console so far is indicative of one thing: we're witnessing the birth of a fully corporate Nintendo. As the Switch generation went along, we lost many figures once synonymous with Nintendo's brand image. The faces of the company, one could say. Obviously, we lost Iwata in 2015, but we later saw the retirement of Nintendo of America's beloved former president, Reggie, in 2019. And even the loss of some key public relations managers responsible for Nintendo's recognizable style of communication in the West, with the exit of Nintendo Minute co-hosts Kit and Krysta in 2022. What we're left with, at least in the public eye, were suit and tie executives. Reggie replaced by ex-Vice President of Global Demand Planning for EA, Doug Bowser. And I'm sorry, Doug, but having your name associated with that company is not a career achievement. It makes me raise my eyebrow at you before you even start working. Doug would go on to appear on one Nintendo Direct and poof out of existence before reappearing to give multiple interviews to many news outlets all across the world in the span of a day, where he would go on to spew some absolute bangers, if by bangers you mean phrases that can destroy a company's worldwide reputation. Not quite a Reggie, and the rest of Nintendo's public figures aren't doing a much better job either. Just a couple of weeks ago, Nintendo's current president Shuntaro Furukawa had this to say: "We also need to consider the price range that consumers expect of Nintendo products." Well, buddy, I don't think anybody expected $80 for Mario Kart. Care to explain?
Doug Bowser.
Oh, it's all on Doug Bowser's shoulders now. No one else?
No.
The guy that hasn't given an interview for years? Is this really a good idea?
$80.
Nintendo's going through a full-on crisis at the moment, but not in their console development sector. Oh no, these names I fully believe they can be trusted. I expect Switch 2 hardware to be fantastic, drift to be eliminated, durability to have been raised, and just the feel of this new console to hold up for decades to come. I think they're fine there. And I don't think it's a problem of their developers either. In fact, that's the best thing going for them at the moment. During the successful Switch generation, Nintendo took the opportunity to expand their development capabilities and invest in partnering up with various third parties to produce games for their own series. I trust the developers working at Nintendo more so than almost any other company currently active in the gaming market. In fact, I am certain that whatever they make, whatever first-party Nintendo Switch 2 titles that are going to come out will be a blast to go through. I didn't expect that blast to also be felt so painfully by my wallet. No, the problem is in the communications department and the leadership of the company. Starting with communications, everything that happened the week following the Nintendo Switch 2 Direct is a masterclass on how not to communicate with your fans. By completely ignoring the mention of a price in the official Direct presentation, Nintendo left its fans to find out by themselves in real time what this thing was going to cost. You took the agency from Nintendo and you placed it on us. That's a fine enough strategy to generate debate, to generate positive word-of-mouth marketing and smiles on people's faces if what you had to show was positive, but as it stands, you gave your consumers a task they did not want to do. You made them go looking for it just so they could be slapped in the face with the absurdity of the first ever $80 AAA release and a higher than expected price for the console itself. Not only did you make people pissed off from the get-go, but you maximized that pissed offness by not explaining yourself for days until an arbitrary embargo dropped for the interviews with Doug Bowser. Interviews that then were panned even further because not only did they not address the concerns adequately, the way Bowser worded a lot of these responses just made things a whole lot worse. You took what could have been a singular problem with the pricing of one game and a couple Switch 2 editions that then could have been easily deflected adequately in an interview by mentioning bundles and NSO benefits into an internet-wide hate bandwagon against everything Nintendo. Good job, guys. Now, not only do you have to deal with backlash on a game's pricing, but the console's price, which at the surface is fine, now seems absurd to people. The complete lack of explanation for game keycards, an important feature that messes with a touchy subject such as physical games and game preservation, combined with the general vibes at the moment, means massive misinformation about the state of physical media on Switch 2 that will go uncorrected because people are already inclined to hate on everything you do. Everything that Nintendo does leading up to the Switch 2's release will now be dramatized, politicized, and scrutinized because of this terrible initial communication. That's problem number one. But problem number two is arguably much more worrying. While a lack of good communication has ballooned the bad situation into much worse heights, that bad situation had to be there to begin with so that it could be made worse. And the ones responsible for that initial bad decision are, worryingly enough, some of the most powerful people at Nintendo. I'm talking about the decision of pricing Mario Kart World and some select Nintendo Switch 2 edition titles for $80. That is the singular most damaging decision that Nintendo could have done at this moment. The console's price is $450, that's slightly above expected but within reason, and you can actually get Mario Kart World bundled in for an extra $50, so that's better than what we had with the original Switch. And in the Direct, they actually did a pretty good job just explaining why you should care about this generation and what makes it so different than the original Switch. They justified it pretty well. The eye-watering first and third-party support present in the Direct making for one of the best presentations ever made. You have it all in the bag. All you have to do now is just hold until release. So you decide to push the first ever $80 game at a time where consumers are extra price sensitive and the world is going through a very, very unstable economic moment. Nintendo, I'm sorry, but you're the richest company in Japan coming out of the best generation you've ever had. The line go up forever mindset will not do you many favors here. We've seen companies fall because of greedy attitudes before. There's still plenty of time to ensure that's not the case with Switch 2. And you're lucky that your console seems to be what people actually wanted at an okay price with amazing games, instead of a box for watching television or $600 stupid hard to develop for proprietary box with barely any games. The tone of this video is very critical because it has to be. This situation is frankly baffling sometimes, but I still hold my belief that the Switch 2 will sell out everywhere on release and then continue to sell well to eventually become a success. Nintendo is still in the best spot out of every gaming company to impact another successful console, and it's not even close. The soul of the company, what made Nintendo Nintendo during their entire run as a gaming company, their developers, they're all there. The figures behind the development of Switch 2 hardware are veterans of the industry who have brought us legendary games and consoles before. And while we don't know yet, it is clear to see that the people behind Mario Kart and Donkey Kong are also veterans whose love for their respective franchises shines through at every new frame unveiled for these projects. Nintendo still has the sauce, they got it. At a time where none of the other big ones do, they got it, but they need to nurture it, value it, really make the best of it, and not fall to greedy anti-consumer practices that have humbled so many before, Nintendo included. I'm very excited for the Switch 2 despite the elevated pricing, and I think that we're still in for a massive blowout of new releases this year, even more so than the ones we already got told. If Nintendo can just get their crap together, this can still end up being one of the biggest console launches for them ever, making for a fantastic, if troubled, entry in what's bound to be one of the most important and longest console generations of all time. Thank you so much for watching, subscribe and hit that bell to see more Nintendo Switch 2 content that I'm surely going to make because I love making these and talking about this console. Leave in the comments below what you think the Nintendo Switch 2's release is going to look like. Is Nintendo's innovation age truly over, or will they bounce back? Thank you so much for watching again. Have a wonderful day. Goodbye!